The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when the human ambassador walked in with a small creature on a leash. Ambassador Sarah Chen smiled at the assembled delegates from 12 different species, each one staring at the four-legged animal beside her, with expressions ranging from confusion to mild terror. "What is that?" demanded High Counselor Vexnar, his crystalline body flickering with shades of orange alarm. "You were told no weapons in the council chamber." Sarah looked down at her golden retriever, Max, who wagged his tail happily at all the new smells. "This isn't a weapon. This is my dog. He's my friend." The concept did not translate well. Several delegates checked their universal translators, convinced they had malfunctioned. The Krell representative, a being that resembled a 7-foot praying mantis, clicked its mandibles in confusion. "You keep a predator as a companion?" the Krell asked. "For what purpose? Protection? Hunting?" "For companionship," Sarah said simply. "He makes me happy, I make him happy. We take care of each other." This was humanity's first year in the Galactic Council. They had been discovered by a Vorthan exploration vessel 6 years ago, and the galaxy had been watching them with great interest ever since. Humans were strange. They came from a death world with extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, and toxic plants. They ate foods that would poison most species. They engaged in recreational activities that seemed designed to kill them. But this, the assembled council members agreed, was perhaps the strangest thing yet. The Vorthan delegate, around being covered in soft blue fur, leaned forward with curiosity. Unlike most species, the Vorthans were known for their gentle nature. "You say this creature is your friend. Can it communicate?" "Not with words," Sarah admitted. "But Max and I understand each other. He knows when I'm sad and he tries to comfort me. I know when he's scared or excited or hungry. We've been together for 8 years. He's family." The word family caused another ripple of confusion. Most species in the galaxy understood family as a biological necessity for reproduction. Some species, like the Krell, abandoned their young immediately after hatching. Others, like the Vorthans, raised their children collectively with no individual attachment. The idea of choosing to make a non-related creature into family was alien to them in every sense. High Counselor Vexnar's colors shifted to a cautious yellow. "Ambassador Chen, I must ask you to remove the creature. It is unsettling to many delegates." Sarah's expression changed. The council had seen her be polite, professional, and diplomatic. Now they saw something new, fierce protectiveness. "Max stays with me. He's been cleared by medical. He poses no threat to anyone. And frankly, Counselor, humans do not abandon their companions simply because it makes others uncomfortable." The tension in the room grew thick. This was only humanity's 4th council session, and they were already causing problems. Several delegates exchanged meaningful looks. Perhaps the humans would not last long in galactic politics. But then something unexpected happened. Max, sensing the tension, pulled gently on his leash and walked toward the Vorthan delegate. The Vorthan, whose name was Counselor Pella, went very still. Max sat down in front of her and looked up with his big brown eyes. Then, very gently, he placed his head on her knee. Pella made a sound that no human had heard a Vorthan make before. It was soft and surprised and wondering. Her fuzzy hand reached down, hesitated, and then touched Max's head. "He is warm," Pella said, "and soft. Why does he do this?" "He likes you," Sarah said, smiling. "Dogs are very good at sensing kind souls. He wants to be your friend too." What happened next would be recorded in galactic history as the first touch. Counselor Pella, representative of the Vorthan Collective, spent the next several minutes petting a golden retriever while making sounds of pure joy. Other delegates watched in amazement as the usually reserved Vorthan giggled like a child. "This is remarkable," Pella said finally, her voice full of wonder. "I feel connected to this creature. Is this what humans call friendship?" "It's the beginning of it," Sarah said. The council session that day did not go as planned. Instead of discussing trade agreements and territorial disputes, the delegates spent hours learning about Earth's long history of animal companionship. They learned about dogs and cats, horses and birds, even fish and reptiles that humans kept as pets. They learned about how humans had walked alongside wolves thousands of years ago, and through patience and kindness, had turned predators into protectors, hunters into family members. The Krell representative was particularly fascinated. "You domesticated predators," it said, its translator conveying deep respect. "Your ancestors took dangerous creatures and made them love you. How?" "It wasn't about making them love us," Sarah explained. "It was about loving them first. We fed them, protected them, cared for them. The love came naturally after that." "Pack bonding," Pella said suddenly, using a term from the human files the Council had studied. "This is what your scientists call it, yes. The formation of deep emotional connections across species boundaries." Sarah nodded. "Humans are social creatures. We bond with things, it's just what we do. We bond with our pets, our plants, our machines. We name our cars and talk to our computers. We see a robot in a movie and cry when it dies. We can't help it." High Counselor Vexnar had been watching all of this with growing unease. His species, the crystalline, were logical and cold by nature. They did not understand emotions and considered them a weakness. "This pack bonding," he said carefully, "is it not a vulnerability? Could it not be exploited?" Sarah's eyes met his. "It could be, it has been. Throughout human history, our capacity for love has been used against us. We have been manipulated, hurt, betrayed because we cared. But we keep caring anyway, because the alternative is worse. A life without connection, without love, without friendship. That's not a life worth living." The council chamber was silent again, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not confusion or alarm, but contemplation. Counselor Pella stood, her hand still resting on Max's head. "I would like to propose something. The Vorthan Collective has been neutral in galactic affairs for 3,000 years. We do not take sides, make alliances, or form bonds. But today I have felt something I have never felt before. I have felt friendship, and I find that I want more of it." She looked at Sarah with her large, gentle eyes. "I would like to propose a formal alliance between the Vorthan Collective and the Human Federation, not based on military power or economic benefit, based on friendship." Several delegates gasped. The Vorthans had never allied with anyone, ever. High Counselor Vexnar's colors cycled through several shades of disbelief. "Counselor Pella, this is unprecedented. You cannot form an alliance based on petting an animal for 10 minutes. "Why not?" Pella asked simply. "The humans have shown me a new way of existing in this galaxy, a way based on connection rather than isolation, on warmth rather than cold. I want to learn more. I want to learn how to bond." Sarah Chen felt tears prick her eyes. She had come to this council expecting politics and bureaucracy. She had not expected to start a revolution simply by bringing her dog to work. But as she looked around the chamber and saw delegates from a dozen species looking at Max with new eyes, she realized that something important had begun. Humanity had brought pack bonding to space, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the first touch, the Galactic Council had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Vorthan-Human Alliance had grown to include 3 more species, all of whom had experienced what became known as bonding moments with human companions or their animals. The Melodari, a species of empathic beings who communicated through song, had been deeply moved when a human musician played a sad melody about losing her childhood pet. The Melodari had never understood why humans created art about loss until that moment. When the song ended, the Melodari delegate had tears streaming down her face and immediately requested cultural exchange programs. The Gren, massive stone-like beings who were known throughout the galaxy as emotionless warriors, had formed an unlikely bond with a human engineer named Marcus who treated their ancient battle cruiser with respect and admiration. Marcus would pat the ship's walls and call it beautiful. He would apologize when he had to make repairs. The Gren had never seen anyone love a machine before. It confused them, then intrigued them, then touched something deep in their rocky hearts. The fourth species to join the alliance was the most surprising. The Sketh, insected beings with a hive mind who were feared throughout the galaxy for their efficiency and ruthlessness. A human doctor named David Park had saved a lone Sketh survivor from a crashed vessel, nursing it back to health for 3 months. The Sketh Collective had watched through their dying members' eyes as this human cared for one of them with endless patience and kindness, asking nothing in return. When the Sketh survivor was returned to its people, the collective made an announcement that shocked everyone. They wanted to understand human compassion. They wanted to learn how to care for individuals. They wanted to change. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the expanded alliance, Max still faithfully at her side, and felt overwhelming pride in her species. Not because humans were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they had reminded the galaxy that connection mattered. High Counselor Vexnar, however, was not pleased. The Crystalline had watched the growth of this strange new alliance with growing concern. They did not understand pack bonding. They did not want to understand it, and they certainly did not like how quickly it was spreading. "This must stop," Vexnar announced during an emergency council session. "The humans are corrupting the natural order of the galaxy. They are spreading their emotional weakness to stable, logical species. The Gren were warriors. Now they name their ships and sing songs to them. The Sketh were efficient. Now they waste resources caring for individual members. This is dangerous." Sarah stepped forward. "Counselor, with respect, I disagree. The galaxy is becoming more connected, more cooperative, more kind. How is that dangerous?" Vexnar's crystal body flashed red with anger. "Because weakness invites predators, Ambassador. There are forces in this galaxy that will exploit your precious bonds. The Void Reapers, the Silence, the 1,000 other threats that lurk in dark space. Do you think they will be moved by friendship? Do you think they will pet your dog and decide to be kind?" The chamber fell quiet. Vexnar had named the fears that many species still held. The galaxy was not a safe place. There were ancient threats that had destroyed civilizations. There were new threats emerging every century. Kindness was lovely, but could it survive in the face of true darkness? Sarah Chen looked at the High Counselor, and then she did something unexpected. She walked toward him. The Crystalline were touch-averse. Physical contact was uncomfortable for them, sometimes even painful. Vexnar flinched as Sarah approached, but she stopped a respectful distance away. "Counselor," she said softly, "may I tell you a story?" He did not respond, which she took as permission. "Thousands of years ago, my ancestors lived in caves. The world outside was deadly. There were predators with teeth as long as my arm. There were diseases that could kill a village in days. There were other humans who wanted to take what we had. We were small and weak and surrounded by danger." She paused, letting the words sink in. "And do you know how we survived? We bonded. We formed groups, tribes, families. We looked after each other. When one person was hurt, others carried them. When one person was hungry, others shared food. When one person faced a predator, others stood beside them." Max pressed against her leg, sensing her emotion. She reached down and stroked his head automatically. "Pack bonding is not weakness, Counselor. It is the source of our strength. One human is fragile. 100 humans who love each other are unstoppable. We did not survive our death world despite our emotions. We survived because of them." Vexnar's colors had shifted to an uncertain purple. "But the threats you faced were primitive. The threats in space are not." "The principle is the same," Sarah said. "When the Void Reapers attacked the Melodari homeworld 300 years ago, the Melodari fought alone. They lost 3 billion people. But what if they hadn't been alone? What if a dozen species had stood with them, fought with them, cared about them?" Counselor Pella stepped forward, standing beside Sarah. "She speaks truth. The Vorthans have survived by being neutral, by caring about no one. But surviving is not the same as living. We have been alone for 3,000 years, High Counselor. I am tired of being alone. One by one, the Alliance members stepped forward. The Melodari delegate, still learning to express herself in ways beyond song, placed her delicate hand on Sarah's shoulder. The Gren representative, a mountain of living stone, moved to stand behind the group like a protective wall. Even the Sketh delegate, still new to individual action, positioned itself with the others. Vexnar watched them, his crystal body cycling through colors that the humans could not interpret but the other species recognized. Confusion, fear, longing, resistance, and finally, a tiny spark of curiosity. "This is foolish," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "You will all be hurt. You will bond with each other and then lose each other, and the pain will be unbearable." Sarah smiled sadly. "Yes, probably. Humans lose people we love all the time. It hurts more than anything in the universe. But we keep loving anyway, because the alternative is emptiness. And emptiness is worse than pain." She held out her hand toward Vexnar, not touching him but offering. "The crystalline don't have to join the Alliance. You don't have to change, but I want you to know that we would welcome you, that we already care about you, even though you don't understand why. That's what pack bonding is, Counselor. It doesn't wait for permission, it just happens." Vexnar stared at her outstretched hand for a long moment. The entire council held its breath. Then slowly, his crystalline form shifted. A single thin appendage extended toward her hand, stopping just short of contact. "I do not understand you, Ambassador Chen. Your species makes no logical sense, but I find that I am curious. Perhaps the crystalline have been alone too long as well." It was not an alliance, it was not friendship, but it was a beginning. And as Sarah Chen looked around the council chamber at the unlikely gathering of species who were learning to care about each other, she felt something that humans had felt throughout their history, in caves and castles, in villages and cities, in all the small and large moments when they had chosen connection over isolation. She felt hope. 2 years after the first touch, the galaxy faced its first great test of the new bonds that had formed. A Void Reaper scout fleet emerged from dark space near the Melodari homeworld. The insectoid ships, black as nightmares and silent as death, moved into attack formation. The Melodari had faced this enemy before. 300 years ago they had fought alone and lost billions. Their culture had been scarred by the trauma. Their songs still mourned the fallen. But this time they were not alone. The Alliance fleet arrived within hours. Human vessels, Vorthan ships, Gren battle cruisers, and Sketh swarm carriers dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They had trained together for this moment, planned for it, hoped it would never come. Admiral Maya Torres commanded the human flagship. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes that turned hard as steel when she looked at the enemy. Beside her stood Counselor Pella, who had volunteered to serve as liaison despite the danger. "They're not moving," Maya observed, studying the tactical display. "The Void Reapers usually attack immediately. Why are they waiting?" The answer came when their communication systems crackled to life. The Void Reapers never communicated. They simply destroyed. But now, a voice emerged from the black ships, cold and curious. "We observe something new. You are many species, yet you move as one. Explain." Maya and Pella exchanged glances. After a moment, Maya opened a channel. "This is Admiral Torres of the Alliance fleet. We move together because we fight together, because we care about each other." Silence, then care. "We do not understand this word. Define." Maya thought about how to explain something so fundamental to humanity, yet so alien to these ancient destroyers. Finally, she said, "It means we will not abandon each other. It means we will die for each other. It means that hurting one of us hurts all of us." More silence. The entire fleet waited, weapons powered but not firing, balanced on the edge of war. "We have destroyed thousands of species," the Void Reaper voice said eventually. "All of them fought alone, all of them fell. You say you will die for each other. This is inefficient, this is illogical." Pella stepped forward, her Vorthan voice soft but carrying through the communication system. "Perhaps, but it is also beautiful. Have you ever had anyone who would die for you? Have you ever cared about anything besides destruction?" The question seemed to confuse the Void Reapers. Their fleet shifted, ships repositioning in patterns that defied easy interpretation. Finally, the voice returned. "We are ancient. We have existed for millions of years. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have never encountered this. Bonding, it is strange. It makes you vulnerable." "Yes," Maya agreed. "It does, but it also makes us strong. Shall I show you?" She gave an order, and the Alliance fleet moved. Not to attack, but to demonstrate. Human ships positioned themselves protectively around the Melodari colony ships that carried civilians to safety. Gren battle cruisers formed a shield wall in front of the Vorthan medical vessels. Sketh swarm carriers surrounded the fleet's flanks, ready to sacrifice themselves for the group. "Every ship in this fleet would die for every other ship," Maya said. "Not because we were ordered to, but because we want to, because we love each other. You can destroy us all, Void Reapers, but you will have to destroy us all because none of us will abandon the others." The Void Reaper fleet was still for a long moment. Then, without warning, they turned. The black ships pointed their prows toward dark space and began to retreat. The voice came one last time. "We do not understand you, but we will observe. Perhaps this bonding is something worth studying before we destroy it." And then they were gone. The Alliance fleet erupted in cheers. Ships of a dozen species celebrated together, their crews sharing joy across the communication channels. The Melodari sang songs of victory and gratitude. The Gren rumbled approval. The Sketh Collective expressed something that might have been relief. On the human flagship, Admiral Tors allowed herself a smile. "We didn't fire a single shot." Counselor Pella was staring at the empty space where the Void Reapers had been. "They have never retreated before. Never. In millions of years of recorded history, they have never shown uncertainty. What did we do?" "We confused them," Maya said. "They understand destruction and survival. They don't understand love. And beings that don't understand something tend to be cautious around it." Pella turned to look at the Admiral, her fuzzy face showing wonder. "You believe love saved us today?" "I believe pack bonding saved us today. We showed them something they'd never seen, species who genuinely care about each other. They didn't know how to process it. For creatures of pure logic, an emotional bond makes no sense. It's a variable they can't calculate." The Vorthan considered this, so our weakness became our strength. Our perceived weakness. Love isn't weak, Counselor. It's the strongest force in the universe. It makes people do impossible things. It makes enemies into friends. It even made ancient space horrors hesitate. She laughed softly. "Never underestimate the power of caring too much." The victory at Melodari Prime changed everything. Word spread throughout the galaxy that the Alliance had faced the Void Reapers and survived without violence. Species who had been skeptical of the human way of bonding began to reconsider. Species who had been afraid to join the Alliance found their courage. Within a year, the Alliance had doubled in size. Species who had been rivals for centuries reached out to each other. Trade agreements became friendship treaties. Military pacts became mutual protection bonds. And at the center of it all, Ambassador Sarah Chen watched her dream become reality. The galaxy was changing, not through conquest or force, but through the simple, powerful idea that beings should care about each other. She was in her quarters one evening, Max sleeping peacefully at her feet, when Counselor Pella requested entry. The Vorthan came in and sat down across from Sarah, her expression thoughtful. "I have been thinking about what Admiral Tors said. Pella began. "About love being the strongest force in the universe." Sarah nodded, waiting. "The Vorthons have existed for 50,000 years. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have watched species destroy themselves and each other. We always believed that survival required detachment, that caring was too dangerous." She reached down and gently touched Max, who stirred and licked her hand. "But now I wonder if we were wrong. If perhaps the species who survived longest were not the ones who cared least, but the ones who cared most, who built connections strong enough to weather any storm." Sarah smiled. "It's a nice thought." "It is more than that," Pella said seriously. "I have been reviewing historical records. The species that lasted longest, that built the greatest civilizations, that left the most lasting marks on the galaxy. They all had one thing in common. They bonded, not just with their own kind but with other species, with animals, with the universe itself." "Pack bonding." "Yes. Humans did not invent it, Ambassador, but you perfected it. You took a survival mechanism and made it into an art form. You built relationships with everything: predators, prey, machines, plants, stars. You looked at the universe and decided to love it, even when it tried to kill you." Pella leaned forward. "That is why the Void Reapers retreated. They have spent millions of years alone, seeing other species as obstacles or resources. They never imagined that beings could choose to love each other. It broke their understanding of reality." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes again. It seemed to happen a lot these days. We're just doing what comes naturally to us. And that is what makes it so powerful. You do not have to try to bond. You cannot help it. You love by instinct. Pella made a sound that Sarah had learned was Vorthon laughter. "Humans are very strange, Ambassador, and the galaxy is very lucky you found us." Outside the window, ships from a dozen species moved in peaceful patterns, their crews working together, learning from each other, becoming friends. The galaxy was changing, one bond at a time. And in a small room on a diplomatic station, an old dog slept at his human's feet, dreaming whatever dogs dream about. He had started a revolution without even knowing it. He had reminded the galaxy what love looked like. Max's tail wagged slightly in his sleep. Perhaps he was dreaming about making a new friend. 10 years after the first touch, the galaxy was almost unrecognizable. The alliance had grown to include over 60 species, and more joined every month. The old ways of isolation and suspicion were fading. In their place, something new was being built. Ambassador Sarah Chen, now older and gray-haired but still sharp-eyed, stood before the largest gathering of species in galactic history. The occasion was the dedication of the Memorial of Bonds, a massive structure built cooperatively by every alliance member. The memorial stood at the exact point where the human exploration vessel Odyssey had first made contact with Vorthon explorers. It was a tower that reached toward the stars, constructed from materials donated by hundreds of worlds. Crystalline panels from Vexnar's people caught the light and threw rainbows across the structure. Melodari songstones hummed with ancient harmonies. Gren bedrock formed the foundation. Human steel and glass provided the framework. At the base of the memorial, a statue stood. It depicted a human hand reaching down to touch a small, four-legged creature. The plaque read simply, "Where friendship began." Max had died 3 years ago, old and happy, and surrounded by beings who loved him. Sarah still missed him every day, but she saw his legacy everywhere she looked. In the Vorthon children who now kept small pet creatures called flufflings, in the Gren warriors who named their weapons and ships with affection, in the Sketh collective that had learned to value individual members. Today, Sarah would give her final speech as ambassador. She was retiring, leaving the diplomatic work to younger humans who had grown up in a galaxy transformed by pack bonding. But she had one more thing to say. "Friends," she began, and the word carried weight it never had before. "I remember when I brought my dog to the Galactic Council, and everyone thought I was crazy." Laughter rippled through the assembly. The story was famous now, taught in schools across the galaxy. They didn't understand why I would keep a predator as a companion. They didn't understand why I cried when Max put his head on Counselor Pella's knee. They didn't understand why humans bond with everything from animals to machines to ideas. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, some familiar, some new, all precious. What I didn't tell them then, because I didn't have the words, was that pack bonding is not just something humans do. It's who we are. We cannot look at a creature without wondering if it could be our friend. We cannot see a machine without wanting to give it a name. We cannot meet a stranger without hoping they might become family. Sarah's voice strengthened. This is not weakness. This is not vulnerability. This is the greatest strength any species can possess. Because when you bond with someone, when you truly care about them, you become more than you were. You become part of something bigger. You become connected to the universe in ways that isolation can never achieve. She gestured at the memorial behind her. Look at what we have built together, not through conquest, not through force, through friendship, through love, through the simple choice to care about beings who are different from us. High Counselor Vexnar stepped forward. His crystal body now showed colors that would have been unimaginable 10 years ago, warm golds, gentle blues, the spectrum of emotions he had learned to feel. He had joined the Alliance 5 years ago, the first of his species to do so. Others had followed. Ambassador Chen, Vexnar said, his voice no longer cold but warm with respect. The crystalline owe you a debt we can never repay. You taught us that logic without emotion is incomplete, that strength without connection is hollow, that existence without bonds is merely survival, not life. Other voices joined in. The Melodari sang her praises in harmonies that brought tears to eyes across 100 species. The Gren rumbled approval that shook the ground. The Sketh Collective spoke as one, declaring her a friend to their entire race. Even the Void Reapers sent a message. They had not joined the Alliance, but they had not attacked anyone in 10 years either. They were still observing, still trying to understand. Their message was brief. We continue to study your bonding. It remains illogical, but we find we do not wish to destroy it. Perhaps we are changing too. Sarah wiped her eyes, overwhelmed. I didn't do this alone. No human does anything alone. That's the point. We are pack animals, and our pack has grown to include the galaxy. She took a deep breath. When I retire, I'm going to get another dog. His name will be Max, like all the dogs before him, and I'm going to take him traveling, to every world that will have us, to show everyone that friendship starts with a simple touch, a moment of connection, a choice to care. The assembly rose, every species standing together. Beings who would have been enemies a decade ago now stood shoulder to shoulder, hand in claw, tentacle against crystal. The galaxy was cold when humanity arrived, Sarah concluded. It was full of suspicion and fear and isolation. We have not fixed all of that, we probably never will, but we have started something. We have shown that there is another way, and that way is love. She stepped back from the podium, and Counselor Pella embraced her. The Vorthan had become her closest friend over the years, the first of many alien bonds that Sarah had formed. You changed everything, Pella whispered. We changed it together, Sarah replied. That's the only way anything good ever gets done. The dedication ceremony continued with songs and speeches and celebrations. Species mingled freely, sharing food and stories and laughter. Somewhere in the crowd, a young human child was teaching a Gren warrior how to play with a ball, and the ancient stone being was laughing for the first time in centuries. This was what pack bonding looked like on a galactic scale. Not grand political agreements or military alliances, but small moments of connection multiplied across trillions of beings. A touch, a smile, a shared laugh, a choice to see a stranger as a potential friend rather than a potential enemy. 20 years after the first touch, the galaxy celebrated Bonding Day for the 20th time. The holiday had been established by popular demand across hundreds of worlds. On this day, beings of all species were encouraged to reach out to someone different, to make a new connection, to extend their pack. Sarah Chen was 93 years old now, her body frail but her mind still sharp. She sat in a comfortable chair on the observation deck of the Memorial of Bonds, watching ships from across the galaxy arrive for the celebration. A young golden retriever named Max the Seventh slept at her feet. Her daughter, who had been born on a Vorthan world and raised in a family that included humans, Vorthans, and a Melodari singer, sat beside her. Her grandchildren, who thought nothing of having friends from a dozen different species, ran through the crowd playing games with alien children. "Grandmother," her daughter asked, "do you ever think about what the galaxy would have been like if you hadn't brought Max to that council meeting?" Sarah smiled, remembering a young dog wagging his tail at strange beings, fearless and friendly. "I think the galaxy would have found its way eventually. Humans aren't the only species capable of love. We just reminded everyone that it was possible. But we were the ones who made it happen." "We were the ones who made it happen faster," Sarah corrected gently. "But the Vorthans were ready to love. They just needed permission. The Gren wanted to feel. They just needed an example. Even the crystalline had emotions buried beneath their logic. They just needed someone to show them it was okay to feel them." She reached down and stroked Max VII's soft fur. The dog stirred, looked up at her with adoring eyes and went back to sleep. Pack bonding isn't a human invention. It's a universal truth. Love is the fundamental force of the universe, the thing that binds everything together. Humans just happen to be really, really good at it. We can't help ourselves. We see something and we want to love it. A Void Reaper delegation had arrived at the station, the first time they had attended Bonding Day in person. They still didn't understand friendship, but they had stopped destroying and started observing. Some scientists believed they were slowly learning to feel. It would take centuries, maybe longer, but change was happening. Sarah watched them being greeted cautiously by Alliance members who remembered the fear, but were choosing hope instead. "That's what I'm most proud of," she said to her daughter. "Not the alliance, not the peace, not even the friendships. I'm proud that we taught the galaxy to hope, to believe that enemies can become friends, that strangers can become family, that the universe doesn't have to be cold and cruel." Her daughter leaned over and kissed her cheek. "You're a good person, Mom." "I'm a human," Sarah said simply. "We can't help being good. We're pack animals. We take care of each other." As the celebration continued around her, Sarah closed her eyes and remembered all the friends she had made over the years. Counselor Pella, who had died 5 years ago and been mourned by billions. Admiral Maya Tors, now retired and breeding dogs on a peaceful planet. Vexnar, who had discovered music and couldn't stop composing. The countless beings across the galaxy who had heard about pack bonding and decided to try it for themselves. She thought about Max, her first Max, whose wagging tail had started a revolution. She thought about all the Maxes who had come after, each one carrying on the tradition of friendship and love. And she thought about the future, the generations yet to come, who would grow up in a galaxy transformed by the simple idea that beings should care about each other. A child ran up to her, a young Sketh who had been raised by human parents after being orphaned. The child held out a small flower, a gift from a Melodari garden. "For you, Grandmother Sarah," the child said, using the title that half the galaxy's children used for her now. "Because you're our friend." Sarah took the flower, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Thank you, little one. You're my friend, too." The child ran off to play and Sarah watched them go. A human child, a Vorthan child, a Sketh child, and a Gren child, all chasing each other around the Memorial of Bonds, laughing and shouting, and having the time of their lives. This was it, she realized. This was what humanity had brought to the galaxy. Not technology or weapons or grand philosophies. Just this, children of different species playing together, friends who would have been enemies, love where there had been fear. Pack bonding, the simplest thing in the world, the most powerful force in the universe. Sarah Chen closed her eyes and smiled. Somewhere, she was sure, Max was wagging his tail. The galaxy had learned to love, and it would never be cold again.